Welcome to the Winden Caves. My name's Bubba, and today we're going to be looking at the first 2 episodes of Season 1 of the Neflix program from Germany, Dark. If you haven't seen the first 2 episodes of the first season of Dark, pause the podcast, go watch them, it's really fun, and then come back and listen. The first main discussion part of the podcast, it'll be me, Bubba, doing this as a rewatch where I've seen all of Season 1, and I'll be joined by Tiny. Tiny is watching this television program, Dark, for the very first time. Our main discussion will be between Tiny and I without any spoilers past the first 2 episodes. Then we're going to get into a spoiler section where I go deep into the Winden Caves and talk about spoilers from the entire first season of the show. To contact us, reach us on Twitter and Instagram at PHQ. That's the word double, the single letter P, and the letters HQ for headquarters. Facebook.com/PHQ. If you've seen those first 2 episodes, you know that Dark has a bit of time travel involved in it. And sure enough, I decided to introduce some time travel into the podcast. In our main discussion, we'll be talking with Tiny after she had only seen the first 2 episodes of Dark. But to introduce that time travel element, we're going to begin every podcast with Tiny from the future. This is Tiny from the future. Tiny, we recorded a bit of a podcast where you had only watched the first 2 episodes of Netflix's Dark, but we have you from the future. Now that you've seen 5, is there anything you would say to yourself who had only watched the first 2 episodes of this wonderful show from Netflix, Dark?
Probably would have been get a paper and a pen to tree this out.
It is a confusing show. Tiny, are you ready? Tiny, are you ready to enter the cave and go back to a time when you had only seen the first 2 episodes?
Yes. Is this the cave with the door in the back or the cave with no door?
Well, we'll find out in a minute. Spoilers, everyone. Let's journey into the Winden Caves. Joining me now is a viewer who is brand new, who isn't doing a rewatch. It's Tiny. Tiny, you might have been Mikkel's age in 1986. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Cave Dwellers. What have been your initial thoughts about the first 2 episodes of Dark?
Well, the first 2 episodes, I was really just focused on getting to know the characters and making all the connections. Thanks, Bub, for having me on the show today. Really just connecting on the dots of the families and who's who in this small town and what exactly is going to happen and going on.
So what we're going to do right now is we're going to just review the outline of the 4 main families we're going to be focused on. And then at any time, Tiny, if you want to talk and give us your initial impressions about them, about the characters, about your thoughts, if any of them you like, if any of you hate, that kind of thing. And so we're going to begin where the series begins, with the Kahnwald family. It begins with Father Michael committing suicide and leaving a suicide note that can't be opened until November at a specific time on a November night. The family includes Michael, his son Jonas, who's kind of one of our main protagonists. There's a series about an entire group of families, but Jonas is like our main protagonist. That's the son who's been dealing with emotional trauma. He's on psychedelic drugs, trying to calm down from his pain of his father's death. His father, as far as he knows, didn't tell anybody why. He doesn't know about the suicide note, which ended up with his grandmother, Ines. And of course, there's his mother, Hannah Kahnwald, who's a masseuse in town making money, but she's also having an affair with one of our other protagonists. So, Liz, any thoughts on the Kahnwald family? Jonas or his mom, Hannah, or anybody else?
Well, I think Jonas, so far in the first 2 episodes, is really the only character you feel sorry for. Everybody might have an edge to them that makes you reminded that whatever may be in the future may be earned a little bit. So, I mean, again, I'm just a couple of episodes in, but on the foreshadowing and things that may go wrong, I think Jonas is the only one we're really rooting for something not to go wrong with.
Yeah, he's already in a bad place when the series begins. So you want this kid to do well. You want him to feel well. As far as the audience knows at this point, he may not realize that his mom the widow, is having an affair. We haven't been told exactly when this affair began. It could have begun before his father's suicide. It could have begun afterwards. But his mom is sleeping with local cop, which brings us to the second family we need to pay attention to. This cop is Ulrich Nielsen. And even though, once again, you're going to need to know all these characters, it's about all of them, I would say Ulrich is kind of like our second protagonist to Jonas. Ulrich is married to his wife, Katharina, who is a principal at the school, and they've got 3 great kids. They've got the blonde, wannabe pot-smoking Magnus.
You're classifying him as great?
I'm doing rewatch, so I liked Magnus. You've got the beautiful Martha, and then you have the magician wannabe, the Harry Houdini wannabe, Mikkel. And Mikkel is the one who had the ultimate disappearing act. Liz, what did you think of this family? What did you think about Ulrich? He's introduced as somebody who's cheating on his wife, but then you kind of find out some of his painful backstory. He had a younger brother, about Mikkel's age, you would assume, who had disappeared in the town. Any thoughts about the Nielsen family?
Well, Bubba, I mean, Mikkel did not listen to his mom when she told him to go straight to get ready for school. So, I mean, it's kind of rolling the dice on his future himself. I mean, what que sera, sera, Mikkel.
Aw, how could you be so tough on Mikkel? Mikkel, he's so cute. You want to love him. He's a magician talking about things disappearing. And at the end of the first episode, he disappears. We'll get to his reappearance, which is really his most magical trick in a bit. But it's through the Nielsen family that we get to learn about the other 2 families. The third family we need to concentrate on in these first couple episodes is the Doppler family. And in the Doppler family, Ulrich, the cop, his female partner is Charlotte. Charlotte is married to a therapist who is Jonas's therapist, and Charlotte has a daughter, Francesca, who Magnus seems to have a crush on.
Oh, yeah, she's great, right?
You're going to come to love Magnus. Peter, the therapist, seems to be dealing with some issues himself. It feels like guilt we've seen in these first couple of episodes, but he seemed more like a minor character.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what's up with his crying. I know as a therapist, I think the rule is, like, you have to tell somebody if they're going to hurt somebody else or hurt themselves. So I'm kind of concerned about what he is stressed about sharing with his wife. Of course, she blew him off when he was about to tell her, so we didn't get to find out.
She was kind of busy. She was looking for a missing kid. All right, and so let's go Martha, the girl who Jonas has had a crush on, while he was away, while he was dealing with the grief from his father's suicide. Martha has moved on and started dating Bartos. Bartos is the member of the 4th family we need to pay attention to, the Tiedemann family. Bartos' mother seems to be very high-strung. Regina, she's running a hotel which seems to be failing. To be honest, when you watch this show, I'm not so sure that the hotel is failing because a kid is missing in town. Do you really think that would really...
Well, I'm just wondering why someone would go stay in the town is kind of the first question. Usually people don't vacation near a nuclear power plant. So that might be a tragic flaw in the business plan. I'm not sure.
It's Bavaria, right? Don't you assume this is Bavaria?
Yeah, I guess so.
Ulrich said he was going to drive up to Frankfurt, so I'm guessing this takes place in the luxurious dark woods of Bavaria. This podcast is sponsored by the Forest Winden Hotel, a luxurious 5-star hotel nestled in the beautiful dark woods of Bavaria. The Forest Winden Hotel is conveniently located just steps away from the Winden nuclear power plant. Winden, the perfect getaway for a family vacation. Go spelunking with your partner in the famed Winden Caves while your children are free to roam unsupervised through the dark forest of never-ending rain. Everyone who reserves a room now will be eligible for a special offer. Book 1 hotel room at regular price and receive 2 extra hotel rooms for free. Just go to the Forest Winden Hotel website and enter the special promo code. Eric ran away. He was not kidnapped. Kids don't get kidnapped in Winden. Once again, that promo code is Eric ran away. He was not kidnapped. Kids don't get kidnapped in Winden. Do it today and receive another 8 hotel rooms free. the Forest Winden Hotel, where every guest in the hotel is treated like they're the only customer in the hotel. 'Cause they are. Of course, Regina's husband, we see very briefly, he works at the nuclear power plant. He's Alexander. And of course, he drops an interesting note in that he moved to town 33 years ago. Or he said he first showed up in Winder there 33 years ago. We're seeing that 33 years ago, that's when Ulrich's younger brother disappeared all those times. And at the end of the second episode, that's where Mikkel suddenly appears, is 33 years ago in the past into 1986. Let's push the time travel onto the side for a bit. Tiny, what were your thoughts about the show before they introduced this kind of supernatural element? What were you thinking? Were you caught up in the drama that all these people were living with?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I love time travel shows. I think they're really interesting, but I think so far it was interesting before the twist of when is Mikkel, the whole story around these families and coming together. One thing I had a thought around, one thing that was so interesting is the kids, I guess, all thought Jonas was in France, but I'm thinking in this small town where Martha's dad is the cop, surely she knows his dad killed himself. So, I don't know, it just made me wonder why everybody believed that story.
Why everybody went along with this kind of friendly, ha ha ha, oh, he was vacationing in Paris, I
Exactly,
suppose.
Yeah, he was studying. Seems like he likes to ride his bike. He's seeing the psychologist in the one family. The other two families are police officers. Seem like that would be kind of common knowledge that you might need to take a break if something happened to your dad.
Right. It also seems very interesting where Jonas's mom didn't want to admit to anybody. Maybe you naturally wouldn't. She had this client she's giving a massage to at the nuclear power plant, and he asks her how she's doing, how Jonas is doing. And maybe it's just natural. She would say, oh, they're fine. We're fine. But you can tell this family is not doing fine. To be honest, you watch all these families, and none seem to be doing fine right at the beginning of the story. And we haven't touched upon the thing that is overhanging the immediate story around the town, and that is the child Eric. The local teen Eric has gone missing. He might have run away, but from what we've seen, he hasn't run away. What were your thoughts when you suddenly saw Eric? He's in a room decorated with what looks like kids' bright blue wallpaper, and somebody's playing him very too loud, it seems like, the you spin me right.
Well, at first I thought, wow, Eric's really got it made wherever he's landed. I mean, you saw his parents, and they didn't seem the most stable type. They looked around, frayed around the edge, so I'm thinking, oh, maybe Eric really did run away, and he's just jamming out to some of the classic tunes. But
now that you think about it, maybe you're thinking to yourself, Eric cut his dad out of the drug deal, took all the money.
Exactly, right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not convinced that Eric's dad is a good guy or a bad guy. I'd probably lean more bad, or maybe more dumb, is maybe where we're going with this.
Yeah, so Eric has disappeared. Eric is known to Bartos and many of the kids as their local drug dealer, the kid they get their pot from. And Bartos, I have to be honest, on my first watch, especially in these early episodes, I was like, I am not on Team Bartos.
Yeah,
I was on Team Jonas.
Yeah. Bartos, I mean, he does seem like his only friend, though. And at least he kept his secret if he wanted it to be kept a secret. So I think you have to give him that. I definitely see, pushing a girl on the ground, even if she did beat you to the drug stash, does seem a little bit extreme for kind of what the situation called for.
Right. So they're going to go, hey, if Eric left his pot behind, why don't we grab it and we'll smoke what we want and then sell the rest if there's a need. And so the kids are out on an adventure. Mikkel has the unfortunate luck for him that because of the parent conference at the school, he's dragged along. Magnus has to watch him. They go there. Francesca has already grabbed the pot. This is typical fun teenage Tuesday afternoon in Winden. But then, of course, the flashlights go out. There's that noise emanating from the Winden Caves. And things start to get freaky. Now, what I always thought was...
Christmas lights started to blink letters. Just kidding.
No, they say this show is a German Stranger Things. Now, it's certainly less fun and more moody than Stranger Things, but maybe where Americans, we like, supernatural things and monsters and these kind of things. Germans are haunted by their past. So maybe their version of Stranger Things would naturally be a series haunted by their past. But one thing I thought was interesting on the trip to get pot, Mikkel says, kids in my class were talking. They think Eric's been kidnapped and held in some basement against his will. Later on I believe at the end of the first episode, we see Eric strapped into some sort of device that looks like it's out of a Saw movie and covers him up, but he's still rocking to those great tunes of Spin Me Right Round Baby. So I was like, Mikkel, how do the kids in your class know this? Perhaps Mikkel's right about something.
You know what it reminded me of for just a second? It also reminded me of Lost. You know that character?
Which character on Lost were you talking about?
Was he French? He was in that underground thing and the record was playing over and over again.
I think you're talking about Desmond, the Scottish.
Desmond, yes. That guy, I don't know how I could have forgotten, I guess because it was a long time ago, but it reminded me of Desmond, the first scene before we saw Eric being tortured. It reminded me of that scene, which was fun.
So the first episode ends with a boy being discovered. Ulrich is devastated. He's so sure it's Mikkel, his son. His partner brings him out to the woods, kind of leaves the body to him because she thinks it's Mikkel too. He goes through. There's been some sort of burning or scarring across this young boy's eyes. And then Ulrich stamps up and he goes, "This isn't Mikkel." Ruh-roh! That gets us into the second episode where a mysterious stranger has come out of the caves, the Winden Caves. I noted on a rewatch, that earlier in the first episode, we meet Nielsen, Magnus, the guy I say, great character, where he's looking for his black hoodie jacket. And then suddenly, this character coming out of the cave is wearing a black hoodie jacket. Did he somehow steal Magnus's jacket? I'm just thinking about it. This character, we're going to assume, later checks on into the hotel and then starts pasting his own version of an FBI hunt for a serial killer where he's pasting things across the wall, including a newspaper clipping where he crosses out the word and instead writes, "When is Mikkel?" Let's go to the end. The episode ends where Mikkel finally comes out of the cave. The cave is slightly different if you can totally pay attention. The infamous chair where the drugs were hidden are gone. Mikkel walks to his house. He notices there's some old cars, an old moped in his yard. He gubs up to the house. He's not let in. It's not his family there, but it is his family there. It's his dad, Ulrich. And then his dad turns around, and who's in the driveway? His mom, who hops on the moped and goes away. Mikkel's magic trick has ended him up in 1986. You're the newbie, Tiny. What are your predictions going forward over the next 8 episodes?
Well, assume at this point, Mikkel's basically Kevin McAllister in this town in Germany. He's got to figure out how to go to the grocery store and buy food. I really don't know. It will be interesting to me on the first watch of this show, trying to figure out how often time crosses over and if that's always evident, or if the scenes are kind of playing tricks with you as far as when the sequence is.
Right, that's a great point. Westworld, the HBO show that's currently airing, is famous for you see this old Western town, but it gives you no hint as to what period in time you're seeing, so they can show this exact same scene and then they can show that a different scene and you think it's happening at the same time. Whoops, it's happening 30 years into the future. So, Tiny, you're talking about Lost. What was your opinion of Lost? I think this show probably would get a lot of comparisons to Lost. For whatever reason, I always thought of Inception. Now, Inception didn't have time travel, but it did have this universe where you had to understand, okay, A leads to B, leads to C. Here we are where you have to understand, okay, we're following Ulrich in both timelines, but then now we're following Mikkel back in 1986. So I thought it does have that bit of it. What other shows would you compare this to? Sorry, answer my first question. What were your thoughts on Lost?
Well, absolutely. I was a fan of Lost. I even liked the last episode of Lost, which of course was pretty controversial, as many last series of episodes are. Or TV shows are. But I was a big Lost fan. I thought they had great characters. I think the second to last season was a little bit questionable, but I liked the characters. I liked the way it ended. And, as crazy as this sounds, to go to your second question, it also reminds me a little bit of This Is Us, where the characters move from time to time. And it's kind of easy to follow once you've got it figured out. But certainly the first episode, you really didn't know what was happening until the big reveal at the end.
No, I think that's a great point. Guys, we're going to have thoughts from Tiny throughout, and then we're going to say goodbye to Tiny as we go into the spoiler section for those of you doing a rewatch as we get ready for Season 2 of Dark, premiering on June 21st here in 2019. Tiny, let's go real quick. These first 2 episodes were titled Secrets, and then the second one was titled Lies. Do you have a ranking or just, once again, any overall thought about the journey we've spent in the possibly Bavarian woods?
I think that, right now I'm kind of ready to watch the third show. So the first episode, I was like, oh, this is okay. And the second one, once there started to be some more drama with the characters, now I can't wait to watch episode 3. I don't want to listen to the spoiler section.
All right. So, listeners, if you have only watched the first 2 episodes of Dark, go ahead and stop the podcast now. For listeners who are doing this rewatch, and we'll talk about how it's rewarding for a rewatch, continue on with me into the caves, into the spoiler section. All right, listeners, we've gone deep. So deep into the Winden Caves that we've reached the door with the triquetra on it. If you have not seen the entirety of Dark Season 1, exit now, escape these spoilers. You don't want to mess with time travel. You don't know what it could do. All right, for those of us who have seen the entire series, I'm going to be doing spoilers talking about these 2 episodes, these first 2 episodes, from a perspective of someone who's watched all 10. This show is great for a rewatch, and it starts right at the very beginning. The opening images, once you start your rewatch, of the gas masks, the rifles, the images of all the people at the various stages in time. It is so important and so relevant, and you're like, oh my God, this is this. Of course, if you're new to the series, the images just wash over you. When you watch it the first time, there's no desire to pause on every shot and remember, oh, okay, that's how that person looks in 86, or that's how they look in 53. Or, is in my case, if you haven't watched in a while, I hadn't watched in 16 months, you want to pause it to go, oh man, I forgot about them. Oh, I forgot about them. A perfect example, or maybe a shameful example to admit, is I completely forgot about Elizabeth Doppler. Who? Well, she's the deaf daughter of the female cop Charlotte and the psychiatrist counseling husband Peter. She's the sister of Francesca, who Magnus likes. Of course, she's not in these first 2 episodes much, but seeing her ever so briefly, you're like, oh, okay, this is great. Oh, yeah, who is she? I can't remember. Of course, the big thing you want to pay attention to in these first 2 episodes on a rewatch is the ultimate reveal of Mikkel Michael. There are so many great moments watching this again in the first 2 episodes that I don't want to spoil them for anybody, even here in a spoiler section. Go watch them. They're so great. I'll let you discover all the kind of subtle hints they're giving you that Michael and Mikkel are the same person, but I'll tell you my favorite of those. Hannah, Michael's wife, and Jonas's mother. And Jonas, they're in the kitchen. And Jonas says to his mom, he goes, do you think he had any secrets? Hannah asks her son, who, Mikkel? Jonas, no, Dad. They're both thinking about the same person. It's so great. But obviously they can't realize at that moment that they're thinking about the same person. She was thinking about Mikkel, the disappeared 13-year-old boy, and Jonas was thinking about his father, who had committed suicide all those months earlier. So many great moments like that. It's just tickling how smart this show is on a rewatch. As I watched these first 2 episodes, I was trying to think to myself, how many of these characters know about time travel here in these first couple episodes? So I decided to list them out. I may be missing some. If I miss any, reach out to me. Once again, our Twitter handle is @PHQ. The word double, the single letter P, then the letters H and Q for headquarters. @PHQ on Twitter, or go to facebook.com/PHQ. All right, so these are the ones I'm pretty sure know about time travel in the first 2 episodes. The first character is Claudia Tiedemann. Now, of course, as far as I could tell, she doesn't appear in these first 2 episodes, but she's Regina, the hotel owner's mother, who, of course, is one of our big time travel players, one of the people who you would assume is the hero in this story as she tries to set time straight. Another character who must know about time travel is Alexander Tiedemann, her son-in-law, or as he's known on a different passport, Boris, who himself traveled through time and arrived in 1986, 33 years earlier in the story. There is the implication, at least on my perspective, is that Alexander comes from way in the future, 33 years in the future from 2019, and somehow ended up back in 1986. We haven't learned that yet. Theoretically, we'll learn that in Season 2. A character who I believe learns about time travel during the time frame of the first episode, and that's Ulrich's father, Trante. Trante is a lieutenant, becomes a lieutenant of Claudia Tiedemann. I assume he becomes a lieutenant here. That said, he was having an affair with Claudia back in 1986, so when exactly he was on board is up for debate. And he, on the night Mikkel disappears, of course, discovers his long-lost son, Mads, who had disappeared 33 years earlier, has been found by Peter Doppler. And so Trante, Nielsen, and Peter are kind of recruited into Claudia Tiedemann's army then. And they discover this time-traveled boy on that night. Another character who I'm pretty sure isn't in the first 2 episodes, unless, of course, he's a character we already know, is Noah, the bad priest, a.k.a. Hanno Tauber. He's not in these first 2 episodes. He seems to be the dark time travel boogeyman, as opposed to Claudia, who, at least in my opinion, Claudia Tiedemann, who is the light or white time traveling person. A couple other people that I feel like we need to talk about is Helge, who's the old man with the burnt ear and the scarred face. Of course, we know how he's going to get those scars, who is Noah's lieutenant. He seems, certainly on our first watch, that he's suffering through dementia as he screams about, oh, it's going to happen again, it's going to happen again. But Helge certainly knows about time travel at this point. The final person is, of course, the stranger, a.k.a., huge spoiler alert for the end of Season 1, older Jonas. The stranger, I believe he's working with Claudia to close this time loop. But of course, to do it, he can't destroy himself by not letting Mikkel go through time and not meeting Hannah and being his parents. And he also can't allow Jonas to mess this up in any way. So I believe those are the characters in these first 2 episodes who know about time travel. If I'm forgetting any, once again, reach out to me and straighten me out. One thing that Tiny figures out, or guesses pretty early, is that the boy who is not Mikkel, the body they found with the scarred eyes, is in fact Ulrich Nielsen's younger brother Mads, who disappeared 33 years ago. As it turns out, Mads just didn't disappear. He was abducted by Noah and Helge, and he was locked in the infamous wallpaper room and put in that electric chair-looking thing, which Noah believes to help be a time machine. They're trying to do it. The body of Mads suddenly shows up there in 2019. We're going to find out in later episodes, in the bunker behind the shack on the forest road, in front of Peter Doppler and Trante Nielsen, the boy's grandfather, the boy's actual father. Claudia is going to instruct them where to take the corpse in the forest so it'll be found by police. Oh, so tough. Another thing that hangs over this first couple episodes in the time travel bit is Michael, a.k.a. Mikkel Kahnwald's suicide note. So when Michael hangs himself in the attic, he leaves behind this letter. The envelope bears the inscription, "Do not open before November 4th at 10:13 p.m. His adoptive mother, we find out, Inez, takes the letter. At the end of this season, she's going to give it to her grandson, Jonas. Of course, this is after Jonas has burned the letter, which he was given by the stranger. You seemingly can't destroy this darn thing. From now on, Jonas carries the letter with him until, of course, in a couple episodes from now, he's going to give it to his younger self. Oh, so crazy. The stranger is just going to keep trying to help Jonas on this predetermined path. And I wonder when the stranger, a.k.a. older Jonas, must have realized that he was the one pointing his younger self on the right path. Of course, we're going to end the first season with Jonas in a really bad spot, shot into the future, 2052, where he's going to be surrounded by people who seemingly are there after the world has gone to hell. And I'm suspecting there's been some cataclysmic destruction at the nuclear power plant. And the whole town of Winden might be destroyed. Are you doing a rewatch? Write to me and tell me the best things you've found and the things you like seeing in these first couple episodes. Write back with the best answer, and who knows, you could get a Raider, aka Twix bar, coming to you real soon. That's it for this bit of the spoiler section here in the Winden Caves. On our next podcast, we'll cover episodes 3, 4, and 5. Subscribe to the podcast. Go to YouTube. You can find this there as well. And you'll hear us next, several days ago in the past.